Welcome to this sixth session looking at the message of 1 Peter. We continue to look at Peter's call for us to live as God's saved people, and we're looking in particular at 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 8 through to 4 verse 6, which we'll call living for God in suffering. We looked previously at the national life and living in the workplace and the home, and also in the church. We'll start again today actually by looking at the church and then in the world generally. And the reason I want to look at chapter 3 verse 8 again is it's so brief, but it's so vital. Because actually as Christians living in the world, it is vital that we are able to live also in a community where there is unity and love, a safe place where we belong. And so we need to ask ourselves again as we read again this verse 8, what does it look like to be of one mind, even when we have different opinions? And what does it look like to be sympathetic to others in our church community who are having difficulties? And what is brotherly love based on our common family together? And how do you show compassion to your fellow believers? And how in humility do you find it to consider others' interests more important than yourselves? You see, church is not about me, it's about us. Are you playing your part in each of these areas of the church? If so, your church family will be a beautiful and well-functioning one. Having looked at this, Peter then moves into us being the light of the world. This passage reflects Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5 to 7. And it can be summed up as return evil with good. In other words, do good, even when someone does something that's nasty to you, irrespective of their behaviour and attitude towards you. Don't insult them, don't harm them, but bless them and treat them well. And there's a number of reasons to do this. Firstly, you are a people of blessing. You're a person of blessing. You've been called to inherit a blessing. So pass this blessing on to others. Secondly, God rewards those who are good to others and is against those who do evil. Thirdly, if you do evil, then you'll come to deserve evil in response too, and you don't want to be there, do you? Fourthly, revere Christ as Lord and honour him and his ways. He submitted himself to the evil of others and did not retaliate. And then fifthly is the opportunity to explain our hope. It's the way of evangelism. Let people see that your hope really is in Christ, because you're not defeated by suffering, nor do you respond to evil with evil. And when they see it, they may just ask the question of why, and you can answer them. But do so in an appropriate and loving way. Then Peter moves to the matter of suffering and the fact that there is good in suffering. And we may well question, how can that be? And this passage has several interpretations as well, the first verses do, which makes it quite difficult. And I recommend using the New American Standard Bible at this point, as it's a very literal translation. And I'm going to use that to interpret what's here. First of all, Jesus brought salvation through his suffering, and he was perfectly good and righteous throughout that suffering. Noah had the huge task, you will remember, of building the ark, and Jesus spoke by his Spirit through Noah as a preacher of righteousness to the people of long ago, just as he spoke through the other prophets. Have a look at 2 Peter 2 verse 5 and 1 Peter 1 verse 11. Many of those who Noah spoke to, Jesus spoke to through Noah in fact, are now imprisoned spirits, as they did not respond. But a few were saved through the ark on the water. And now you too are being saved by your appeal to God for righteousness, made possible by the resurrection of Jesus Christ and his ascension into heaven, where all powers are in submission to him. And this is suffering is actually to your benefit, because in doing so you are following the way of Christ. What could be better than that? Secondly, by choosing to do God's will in suffering, you are actually establishing a foundation in your life for the future. And that is to consider God's will more important than being comfortable. This is very similar in thought to the whole idea of refining in chapter 1, where it is better for the silver and gold to go through the process of fire to be purified than to continually have all the dross around them. And thirdly, although you're probably going to have abuse and mockery now because you're avoiding human desires, we will all ultimately have to give an account to God. And fourthly, though we die physically, and you know people who've died in the faith, and yet they are now spiritually alive by the gospel of Jesus Christ. So let us be careful how we live, both in the church, a safe zone, and in the world where we are strangers. May the church of which you are a part be a place of unity and love. May God enable you to stand firm in the world, irrespective of what it throws at you. And as you do so, may many be drawn to our hope in Christ.